Hi, welcome to Lies and Secrets channel. We hope you will have fun with us and Jacob watching. I never thought my life would spiral into this dark, twisted narrative, but here I am standing in the ruins of my own making. The sun had just set, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of my betrayal across the walls. My heart pounded as I heard the door creak open, revealing Rich and Daisy, their faces etched with shock and pain. I can explain, I stuttered, knowing full well that some truths are too heavy for words. How did I get here? What led me to this moment where everything I cherished was on the brink of collapse? The answer lies in a moment of weakness, a forbidden escape that I sought with our neighbor's bulldog. Stores. But it's not just about Storg. It's about the void inside me, the darkness I've been hiding. And now as their eyes bore into mine, I must face the storm I've unleashed. Do I dare to tell them the whole truth, or will it be the final nail in the coffin of my marriage? The living room was bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. I sat on the edge of the sofa, my fingers nervously tapping against the cool leather. The silence in the house was deafening, each tick of the clock, a reminder of the storm brewing just beyond the horizon. I had always prided myself on my self-control, on my ability to keep secrets locked away in the deepest corners of my mind, but Stork, with his massive, imposing presence, had shattered that illusion. His deep, resonant barks had filled the house with an echo of my own guilt, a sound that now seemed to reverberate in the emptiness around me. The door creaked open, and the sound sliced through the silence like a knife. My heart skipped a beat as I turned to see Rich, his face, a mask of confusion and hurt. Daisy stood behind him, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and betrayal. Cried. I can explain. I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. The words felt hollow even as they left my lips. How could I explain the inexplicable? How could I justify the betrayal that had unfolded in this very room? Rich's gaze was intense, searching my face for any sign of the woman he thought he knew. Explain what exactly his voice was. Calm, too calm, like the eerie quiet before. Tempest. Daisy stepped forward, her voice trembling. I trusted you with my home, with everything. Her words were like daggers, each one piercing through the facade I had so carefully constructed. The air was thick with unspoken accusations, with the weight of my actions hanging between us. I wanted to scream, to tell them it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But the truth was far more complicated. It wasn't just about Stork. It was about the void within me, the emptiness that had led me to seek solace in the most forbidden of places. As Rich's eyes narrowed, searching for answers, I wasn't sure I could give. I realized the depth of the chasm I had created. Question wasn't just what I had done, but why, and that was the part that scared me the most. Part one wasn't ready to confront, not with them, not even with myself. The room seemed to close in, the walls pressing against my secrets, urging them to spill out. But all I could do was sit there, enveloped by the consequences of my actions, wondering if there was any way back from the edge I had so carelessly stepped over. The silence stretched on each second, feeling like an eternity. I could feel the weight of their star, the unspoken questions hanging in the air like a thick fog. My mind raced for an explanation, any explanation that could salvage the situation. But all I could muster was a feeble, "It's not what you think." Rich's jaw clenched, his eyes never leaving mine. Then what is it exactly? His voice was a mix of disbelief and a demand for truth. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my trembling hands. It was a moment of weakness. I began, my voice barely a whisper. I was alone, and Storg was here, and I felt so disconnected from everything, from you, from myself. It was like I was looking for something to fill the void. Daisy's expression softened slightly, but the hurt was still palpable. But why him? Why not talk to me or to Rich? Her voice broke, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. Truth was, I didn't have a good answer. I don't know. I admitted, my gaze dropping to the floor. It was wrong, and I know that now. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. Rich stepped closer, his presence overwhelming a mistake. You call this a mistake? His voice rose, the calm facade cracking. This isn't just about Storg. This is about us, about trust, about everything we've built together. I could feel the room closing in, the walls of our life together, pressing down on me. I'm sorry. I whispered the words, feeling inadequate against the enormity of my betrayal. Daisy moved to sit beside me, her hand tentatively reaching for mine but stopping short. I need to understand, she said softly. How could you let it go this far? Question hung there, heavy and accusatory. I wanted to explain the loneliness, the feeling of being lost in my own life, the allure of something forbidden as a temporary escape. But how could I make them see the darkness within me without sounding like I was making excuses? Rich paced the room, his frustration palpable. We need space. He finally said, his voice strained. I need to think, to process this. You've shaken everything. I nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. Trust, once broken, was like a mirror shattered into 900 pieces. Could it ever be pieced back together? As they left the room, the silence returned, but now it was different. It was filled with the echoes of their disappointment, their hurt. I sat there alone with my thoughts, the enormity of what I had done settling around me like a heavy cloak outside the sun had set, leaving the room in darkness, mirroring the shadow that had fallen over my life. I knew then that the journey back to any semblance of normalcy would be long and fraught with challenges. But first I had to face myself to understand why I had sought solace in such a forbidden act and whether there was any part of me left worth saving. The room felt colder now, the darkness outside seeping in through the windows, a stark contrast to the warmth that once filled our home. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked over to the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. The streetlights cast a lonely glow on the empty street, mirroring the emptiness inside me. My mind wandered back to the moments before Daisy and Rich had walked in. The house had been quiet, too quiet, and Storg's presence was like a magnet, drawing me into a world where the rules didn't apply. It was a fleeting escape, but now the reality of my actions was inescapable. I turned back to the room, my eyes catching on the framed photos on the mantelpiece. Pictures of happier times of trust and laughter now seemed to mock me. My gaze lingered on one photo in particular. Our wedding day, where Rich's eyes were full of love and promise. The irony was suffocating. The sound of the front door opening again made me jump. It was Rich returning alone. This time his steps were heavy, each one echoing through the house like a drumbeat of judgment. He stopped at the doorway, his silhouette framed by the light from the hallway. I've been walking, he said. His voice hoarse, trying to wrap my head around this. He paused, looking at me with a mixture of pain and confusion. I need to know, was this the first time? The question hung between us, heavy with implications. I swallowed hard, the truth clawing its way up my throat. Yes, I whispered, it was the first time with Story, but Rich's voice was sharp, cutting through the air. But there have been moments not like this, not with him, but moments where I felt this pull towards something else, something forbidden. I've never acted on it until now, but the thoughts, the desires, they've been there. Rich face contorted with pain, his hands balling into fists at his sides. Why didn't you talk to me? We could have faced this together. I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. I was scared, Rich. Scared of what you'd think of me, scared that I'd lose you. I thought if I could just keep it locked away, it would go away. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. And now what do you want now? I want us. I said, my voice breaking. I want to fix this, to understand why I did what I did, to make amends. But I know it's not just about me wanting it. It's about whether you can forgive me, whether we can rebuild. Rich's expression was unreadable, his eyes searching mine for sincerity. I don't know if I can, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But I do know I need time to think, to feel, to decide if there's anything left to salvage. The silence that followed was thick, laden with the weight of our fractured relationship. I nodded, understanding his need for space. For clarity. Take all the time you need, I said, my voice steady. Despite the turmoil inside, I'll be here trying to figure out how to be better, how to be the person you deserve. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. I'll stay at my brother's for a while. We'll talk soon, but not now. I can't. As the door closed behind him, the finality of the sound echoed through the empty house. I was alone now, truly alone, with only my thoughts and the daunting task of self-discovery. The journey ahead was unclear, filled with obstacles of my own making. But I knew one thing for certain. Path to redemption, if it existed, would be long and arduous. I sat back down on the sofa, the leather colder against my skin, and stared into the darkness, contemplating the shattered pieces of my life, wondering if there was any glue strong enough to mend what I had broken. The night stretched on the darkness outside, deepening, mirroring the abyss I felt within. The silence of the house was now a stark reminder of the isolation I had brought upon myself. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock each second, a reminder of the time slipping away, time I had squandered with my actions. I stood up my legs, feeling like lead, and walked to the kitchen, my movements mechanical. The refrigerator light was harsh against the dimness of the room, illuminating the mundane contents that seemed so out of place. With the turmoil in my heart, I grabbed a glass of water, my hand trembling as I poured, the liquid sloshing over the rim. Returning to the living room, I sat back down, the glass cold in my hand, the water untouched. My gaze fell upon Storg's empty bed, a stark symbol of the void I had created. The bulldog, now with Daisy, was perhaps better off away from this chaos. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a message from Daisy ***. Daisy ***, I'm taking Stork to stay with Mom for a few days. I need space to think. The message was like a knife twist. Not only had I betrayed my husband, but I had also shattered the trust with my sister. I typed a reply, my finger hesitant. ***, me ***. I understand, I'm so sorry. Daisy. No response came. The silence was her answer, heavy with disappointment and hurt. The weight of my solitude was crushing. I needed to do something, anything, to start making amends, to start understanding myself. I picked up my phone again, this time dialing my therapist's number. It was late, but I knew she often worked into the night. Hello, her voice was calm, a stark contrast to the storm inside me. It's me, I said, my voice cracking. Hi, I've made a terrible mistake. I need to talk. There was a pause, then come in tomorrow, we'll talk through this. Call ended, but the promise of a session gave me a sliver of hope, a small beacon in the overwhelming darkness. I looked around the room at the life I had built, with Rich now teetering on the brink of collapse. The photos, the furniture, every item seemed to whisper accusations. I needed to confront this head-on, not just for Rich, but for myself. The night wore on, and with each passing hour my resolve hardened. I couldn't undo what I had done, but I could try to understand why I had done it. Was it the thrill of the forbidden? The escape from a life that felt too predictable, too mundane, or was it something deeper, a cry for help that I had misdirected? As dawn began to break, casting a pale light through the curtains, I made a decision. I would write a letter to Rich, not just an apology but an explanation, a confession of my inner turmoil. Maybe, just maybe, it could be the first step towards healing, towards understanding. I fetched a notepad and penned from the study, the act of writing grounding me. The words flowed raw and unfiltered. Rich ***. I've spent the night in our home, surrounded by the echoes of our life together, and I've realized how much I've taken for granted. My actions were not just a betrayal of our marriage, but of myself. I've been lost searching for something I couldn't name, and in my confusion I've hurt you deeply. I want to understand why I felt this pull towards something so wrong, why I couldn't find solace in our love. I need to find myself again, to be the person you fell in love with. Not this shadow of guilt and shame. I'm seeking help, starting tomorrow, to unravel this part of me that I've ignored for too long. I hope in time you can find it in your heart to talk to, maybe forgive or at least understand. I love you and I'm sorry for the pain I've caused. ***. I'll wait for you however long it takes *** with a heavy heart. I signed it, folded the letter and placed it on the coffee table where he would see it. The room was now bathed in the soft light of morning, the shadows of the night receding. I felt a small spark of determination. The journey ahead was daunting, filled with the need for self-reflection therapy and possibly the hardest part facing Rich with the truth of my soul. As the morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a gentle glow over the room, I felt a resolve I hadn't known before. The letter to Rich was not just an apology. It was a promise to myself to delve into the depths of my psyche to understand the darkness that had led me astray. The silence of the house was now a canvas for my thoughts, each tick of the clock a reminder of the time I needed to reclaim. I stood up, my movements, slow and deliberate, as if each step was a commitment to the path of redemption I was about to embark upon. I walked to the mirror in the hallway, confronting my reflection. The woman staring back at me looked haunted, her eyes shadowed with regret and a flicker of determination. "You can do this," I whispered to myself, a mantra for the journey ahead. The doorbell rang, slicing through the quiet like a sharp reminder of the outside world. My heart raced as I approached the door half, expecting it to be Rich, returning with some form of resolution or further condemnation. Instead, it was my therapist, Dr. Luna, standing there with a look of concern. "I thought I'd come to you," she said, her voice gentle. "Given the circumstances, I felt it might be better to talk here." I nodded, grateful for her understanding, and led her to the living room. The room, once a place of comfort, now felt like a courtroom where my actions were on trial. We sat, and the weight of the situation pressed down on me. "Let's start with how you're feeling right now," Dr. Luna prompted, her notepad. "Ready?" "I feel lost," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've hurt everyone I love, and I'm not sure who I am anymore." Dr. Luna listened intently, her pen moving across the paper. "It's important to recognize that feeling, but also to understand that it's a starting point for change. Why do you think you did what you did?" Question hung in the air, heavy with implications. I think I was looking for something, a thrill maybe, or an escape, but it wasn't just about that. It was about feeling alive, feeling something when everything else felt so numb. She nodded, encouraging me to continue. "And what about now? What do you feel when you think about your actions?" "Guilt, shame, but also a strange clarity. I see now that I was running from myself, from my responsibilities, from my own life. I want to stop running." Dr. Luna leaned forward. "That's a significant realization. Now we need to explore what you're running towards. What do you want your life to look like moving forward?" I really thought about it for the first time in what felt like forever. I want trust back in my life. I want to be someone who can be trusted. I want to rebuild not just with Rich, but with myself. I want to find Jacob in the mundane, to appreciate the love I have not seek it elsewhere. We spent hours talking, dissecting my emotions, my desires, my fears. Dr. Luna helped me see that my actions were not just a betrayal, but a symptom of deeper issues. Issues of self-worth. A fear of losing love, of not feeling enough. As she left, she handed me a book on self-forgiveness. "Start here," she advised. "Forgiving yourself is the first step towards healing." Alone again, I picked up the letter I had written to Rich, rereading it. It was raw, honest, and it was the beginning of my penance. I placed it back on the coffee table, a beacon for when he returned. The day passed with me in a state of introspection. I cleaned the house not just to keep busy, but as a metaphor for cleansing my life. Each swipe of the cloth felt like wiping away the layers of deceit I had built. Evening came, and with it a knock at the door. My heart leaped into my throat. It was Rich, his face unreadable, holding the letter I had left for him. "I read it," he said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying the storm within. "I need to know if you mean every word." I nodded, tears welling up every word. "Rich, I want to fix this too. Understand why I did what I did, to make amends. I'm in therapy now, trying to be better." He looked at me for a long moment, the silence stretching between us like a tangible thing, heavy with the weight of our shared history and the betrayal that now defined it. "I believe you," he said. Finally, his voice thick with emotion, "but believing and forgiving are the different things." I nodded. understanding the distinction all too well. I know I whispered, my heart aching with the hope that forgiveness might one day be possible. I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to show you that I can change that. I can be the person you deserve. Rich's gaze dropped to the letter in his hands, then back to me. I've been thinking a lot, walking, trying to understand. I love you, but this has shaken me to my core. Tears streamed down my face, unbidden as I listened to him. I know, and I'm so sorry. Rich, I'm committed to therapy, to understanding myself, to making sure this never happens again. He took a deep breath, his eyes searching mine. I need time, real time, to see if we can rebuild something from this wreckage. I'm not saying it's over, but I'm also not saying it's going to be easy. I understand, I said, my voice steady. Despite the turmoil inside, I'll give you all the time you need. I'll be here working on myself, waiting for you. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments. Put like, share with friends, and subscribe to the channel. We hope you will have fun with us.